does that mean that you're beyond the grace of God? No. Does that mean you wouldn't baptize someone who was smoking? No, I think you would. And with all of these things, I think it's a discipleship issue, not an evangelism issue. So it's not this case that your mate who doesn't know Jesus comes to church and you're like, bro, you can't come in until you put that vape away. It's it's not. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that we should be essentially detracting from the amazing nature of what the gospel is and kind of closing the door in people's faces because of their habits.
Hello and welcome to another episode of LICC's Unscripted, where we have honest conversations about faith, culture and everything else in between. I'm so jazzed about this episode, keeping you on your toes. We've got a guest speaker with us today, guest conversationalist.
Let's go.
This is James.
Hey.
And I've also got my wonderful friend, colleague, Sam. Hi, mate.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm excited because you're bringing us our conversation topic this week, and it's based on your connecting with culture that you wrote, and there's a whole story behind it. Let the people know. What is cracking? What's happening?
Oh man, we've got to go back 10 years.
10
10 years.
Okay, let's do it.
To my mate's back garden.
Okay.
On a Friday night.
Wow, you're really giving us the detail of going there.
I'm 17 years old.
Oh man.
And I'd gone to, it was a party, and I went to the party that night with the intention of, I'm gonna try a cigarette for the first time.
This was the intention of your heart. As you're getting ready, you were like, this is the night I'm trying a cheeky cigarette.
It was entirely premeditated.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna try smoking for the first time, and we'll see what it's like. So I went to the party, and cigarette starts getting passed around, getting everybody sat in a circle.
Sorry, so there's one cigarette that is going around this
entire
and
yeah.
everyone's putting their mouths on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That doesn't sound conventional smoking. That sounds disgusting.
It
sounds like you have one cigarette left in your pack, and you're trying to eke it out amongst 20 teenagers, so that everyone gets a toke.
So all of this will become clear as we kind of talk about this more. But if I can paint the picture, and I think I'm painting it quite well. That it is just, it's the least cool thing in the world.
Smoking?
No, just we can come on to that, but just this setting of a party and one cigarette being passed around everywhere.
I can imagine the toke, and then each teenager because it's their first time, and then they pass it on.
Well, I think everyone was doing that. Oh, everyone's knows what they're doing about with smoking, and I was doing the same. Even though it was the first time I'd ever smoked, I was acting like I knew what I was doing. So it comes over to me, and I take it, and of course I don't know what I'm doing. I've never smoked before, and so I just.
You're an innocent 17-year-old.
So I just shove it in my gob, and take a big old suck from it, and then I think I probably blew most of it straight back out. And I passed it on to the next person, who was then immediately like, "Have you just sucked the end of this?" and that was where it started.
This was the story, the beginning, the origin story of your journey.
What do you mean they sucked the end? You sucked the end of this? They were like, oh, this has got loads of slobber on it.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if that's entirely my fault, because by this point it had gone around.
Yeah, 10 people had already
But I got the blame for it.
You kind of randomly kissed 10 people in that room that night.
Pretty much, yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Not good. But that's where I smoked my first cigarette, and then I smoked from kind of on and off from 17 to 19 when I quit, and that was it, and that was how I smoked. And
all from one random party.
I was never a big smoker, someone who would smoke kind of lots of cigarettes every day.
Yeah.
But I did smoke, I'd say, reasonably consistently for 2 years, and so we're talking and we're thinking about smoking as Christians.
Wow, disgusting habit or just harmless thing, who knows? James, do you smoke?
I don't smoke. I also had a similar sort of adolescent experience. This time when I joined university, I joined the theatre society, and I was trying to fit in like thespian vibes. They were like menthols.
Right.
It was pretty, yeah. And I remember one particular night where I'd had a couple too many, I had too much alcohol, and I went outside and I fully vommed all outside their bins. And all I remember is coming back in and someone had given me a toke of their cigarette, and they clearly looked at me, and I tried to give it back to them. They were like, "No, just keep it." They were like,
he's done now. He's done for the
They were
night.
like, "You don't. It's
man.
okay, keep it." Yeah.
For all of us, it was like social situations. I think I had a mix of the both of you. So my friend used to smoke quite a bit, not loads, but maybe enough that I noticed that this was like a part of her life. And I was working in hospitality, smoking is part and parcel of the culture. And I just remember thinking, you know, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it with my friend. She was a Christian mate. I love her to bits. And it was really sort of unique to me that this girl loves the Lord, is like just journeying through her faith and the complexity of what it means to be a Christian in I don't know, what was the time? 2019?
You're revealing your age.
2017?
2017. So fun fact, Ennette and I are actually married.
Oh man.
And so we met and started dating in 2017. So it would probably been
This is not
that.
a podcast about that, James.
Okay, fine.
Moving on to my smoking origin story.
Okay. All right.
At whatever time it was, just the complexity of being a Christian in that time. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. So mixture of the two of you. And I will say, like, social smoking was a part of my life. And then I got scared of my mum. Mum, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I don't do it anymore. But I got scared of my mum, and I was going home for my birthday in June. And I remember thinking to myself, it's March right now. I cannot be addicted when I go home. This is it. I need to stop. And that was that.
What would your mum have done if she'd seen you smoking?
My mum would have lost it. I honestly think, guys, I love my mum so much. Like, praise crazy African mums. That is my mum. She would have kicked me out. She would have told me to pack my bags and go back to uni. If she saw me smoking in the garden or anywhere in that house, it was not happening. It's not the one.
So for me, I was at first year at uni, but I had a friend who was in third year from church. Wise older Beth. She was so wise. Still is so wise.
Wise older Beth.
But basically, she found out that I smoked.
Oh,
I don't know how she never knew, because I don't think I ever really hid it.
Okay.
But she found out and then was like, I remember she texted me one day and was like, "Do you want to go for like coffee at like the coffee shop on campus?" No, this is really helpful practical advice. If a Christian ever asks you, "Do you want to go for a coffee?"
You're in trouble.
There's an agenda. But I didn't know this at the time, so I just thought, "Oh, that's really nice. Me and Beth are just going to go and hang out." So me and Beth like went and
I would have thought that was a date. If a Christian girl asked me if I wanted to go for a coffee.
Me and Beth were cool. There was never
those vibes.
Yeah, there was never that subtext, but it was more just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go and hang out with my friend." But then she was like, "Why do you smoke? Like, why do you?"
Oh, I love that she asked why, rather than sort of went in with any kind of judgment or opinion of her own.
But the problem was that because like, unless it wasn't clear from the story at the start where I went there like, I'm gonna smoke for the first time. I did it because I wanted to appear cool. Which then, because I think we were chatting earlier, weren't we? And you were like, do you think it made you cool? And I was like, I think it made me about as cool as someone who was trying to be cool by smoking, if that makes sense. Which is kind of like the least cool thing that you can imagine.
The least cool way.
Yeah. So I kind of like tried to answer Beth's question over about 20, 30 minutes, and eventually, this is what I still say. Eventually, I just ran out of answers. Like I ran out of things that I could say to be like, this is why I smoke. But yeah, it was her. There was like other friends in my life as well at the same time, who like did know that I smoked and were like trying to encourage me to stop. I've still got two of my friends. They gave me for my birthday when I turned 19. They gave me a birthday card, and in it they put some NHS smoke-free cards in it, like the little business cards, and I still have them in my wallet.
Wow.
So because there's been a few times since then I've been like, maybe I'm tempted to like go back again, but then I have them there as a little reminder to be like, you don't smoke anymore.
That's really good. I love this. And I think what's so interesting is that I grew up just knowing that smoking was not good for you. And even though it looked so cool when I watched movies or music videos, it just has that aesthetic, that vibe. I was like, it's not healthy for me. It's not good for me. But then I still sort of was lured into like, I don't know, the lifestyle of it or just the circumstances. I don't know. But
I hear people say that. They're like, oh, the aesthetic of smoking. For me, my childhood memory of smoking is of Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. Like she is the holder. Yeah, 100%. It is the face of like malevolence. Is my like childhood experience of like what? It was probably something to do with the fact that my mum also said to me, James, like, you will be kissing an ashtray if you date a girl who smokes. Which is ironic because you were socially smoking and I had to throw out your cigarettes.
Listen, they were beautiful Sobranis. They were like pastel coloured. They're iconic and they're discontinued now. But what can we do?
I didn't wait for the Lord to, convict you.
Okay, so you are like smoking is just a no.
No,
like spiritually, health-wise. For context, you're a doctor. You like work in the NHS. You're training to be a GP. Would love to know your thoughts on the whole situation.
I find it hard to, I wear lots of hats when it comes to smoking, right? There's the childhood trauma of Cruella de Vil and my mum being like, you don't kiss an ashtray. There's like, the health aspect of smoking is so, like patients all know when they come in that you might ask them about their smoking intake and you have to do it in a really non-judgmental way because it can be the smallest thing. People will be like, oh, they're clearly just judging me. And then there's like the spiritual question about it too. That until I started thinking about like today's conversation, I probably would have said it's like a personal preference that is unhealthy for you, but like there are so many things that are unhealthy for you. Okay. But like the more I was looking at this and the more that I was looking at different faith traditions within Christianity, particularly some of the more kind of like the older ones.
This is interesting.
They all, well, certainly the ones that I've seen, like so. The Catholics, it's in the Catechism of the Catholic faith that it's it's wrong, that like you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't smoke. And my friend who recently, he was born C of E, or like raised C of E, but he married an Orthodox girl and he's been chrismated, which is like the Orthodox version of like becoming, like being baptized, I guess, into the Orthodox faith. He is a smoker, but he recognizes that it is now like, he calls it a sin, and he's quite intense about it.
Yeah. Wow. But is it in the Bible though? Because obviously it all hinges on the word of God.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And like, there are definitely verses that relate to smoking that you could relate to smoking. So like, particularly, there's a verse in Galatians 5 where Paul, one of the writers of the New Testament, is writing to a church about what it means to like live by the Spirit versus. We don't have to get into like the whole like book, but like he talks in Galatians 5 about a list of things which you shouldn't do to like live by the flesh. Okay. And one of those things is a word called pharmakeia, which translates to English as witchcraft.
Ooh, bringing in the Greek.
Bringing in the Greek. Okay. You don't do a New Testament Greek thing in lockdown because you have nothing better to do, unless you can crack it out.
Find a way to use it.
Yeah, unless you exactly.
Pharmakeia. This is the word that's used.
And so it's the word that we get, words like pharmacy or pharmacology from. Okay. So it can relate to things like drugs. Yeah. And so, but in this context, it's like things that distort and alter your mind, things that affect your mind. So like obvious stuff would be things like, like stronger class A drugs, like heroin or ecstasy, or like, and even things like marijuana, which is obviously people smoke marijuana mostly or a lot of the time. I think it relates to that too. But you could even relate it to the way that maybe like nicotine, like especially in stronger concentrations, might impact you. I've just got to have that cigarette to chill me out or calm me down. There's the trope of the busy corporate man who's like has to go outside for a cigarette break because he just has to chill out. Like,
it's true, but sometimes like their schedules are so busy. Like this is the only time that they have like 5 minutes to themselves. I really saw that in hospitality. It was like busy 12-hour shifts, and you would get little incremental 5-minute breaks every half hour, 45 minutes if you were a smoker. And I think. We've all watched the Friends episode, important business decisions are made on the rooftop between Rachel and her manager, and she misses out on all these moments of career progression because she's not smoking. And again, like I've definitely seen this in my hospitality life with the friends I knew, and that sense of like, I want to belong in this culture with these people, I want to fit in with them.
Essentially though, we are, from what you said as well, James, we're skirting around the issue, which is the question of, is smoking is vaping, because that's like the thing now. Is smoking is vaping a sin? Like, how are we categorizing that? How are we thinking of that?
Listen, vaping is a sin, okay? I'm on the bus and I've got all these little tweens vaping in the corner when it clearly says do not vape indoors on public transport.
My confession is, my confession fully is that I love the smell of secondhand fruity vape. If I can smell, honestly, even though it's literally been through someone's like, I mean, I don't know what you're like.
What's wrong with you?
Why are you looking at me like that? You literally took a cigarette which had been in the mouths of 10 different people at the age of 17.
I was 17.
This
like,
is a judgment-free space.
No, but like,
judging vaping on the public transport.
No, but the smell, I just love that smell. That strawberry smell.
It's horrendous.
I even thought one time they were veering off a way that I wasn't going, and I thought to myself, shall I follow them to smell their strawberry vape more? Honestly,
But what do we think though? Like to say. So when you're getting a load of this like secondhand vape smoke, which is just bizarre, what are we thinking about the person who's doing that? Like, what would we do if they came to our church on a Sunday and they were sat next to us and we were chatting to them and they were talking about, they joined our small group or something like this?
They walk in and you backhand it out of their hand and you say, "Thus saith the Lord."
Smite it.
Smite
it on the ground.
Do you know what? This is so good because I did come to church once with some friends who were smoking, and I didn't realize how long worship is until I was with my smoking friends because they wanted to go have a cigarette break. Then I was like, okay, we're gonna miss the sermon and like the meet and greet with people. So then we come back in, didn't realize how long the sermon was because again, wanted to go for a little cigarette break. So that was really like such a unique perspective to experience church through the lens of somebody who like smokes regularly, that the service is just too long. What would I think if they came into church and sat next to me? It wouldn't be a big deal, I don't think. But when you bring it closer to home, when it's your friend or like somebody you're thinking of dating or your family member, then what?
Because it's possible that we'd want them to stop smoking, but like, what's the motivation for that?
Yeah.
So like my friends at uni wanted me to stop smoking, but was that a spiritual concern or was that like a health concern, or are they intertwined? Or, and I think this is like really valid as well to bring up, which is that the kind of industry of smoking and tobacco all kind of hinges on multi-billion-pound corporations around the world who profit from people essentially getting lung and throat cancer. So like, is it related to that as well? Like, do we look at our friend and
like
say,
an ethical justice?
Do we look at that and say, actually, for the same reason that maybe I don't want people to use fast fashion, equally I don't want people to smoke, and support those companies.
I love that perspective.
Yeah. I think that's not something that I've really thought about massively, but I think the question that you were asking of like, is it wrong? From a spiritual perspective, I think it's a really interesting one, and probably one where you might get different people who have different views on it. But like, there was one question that you asked me earlier on where you were like, would Jesus have smoked? And I'd be interested to hear your take on that. Like, would Jesus have smoked?
Oh, what did I say earlier? I think
you said that Jesus would go hang out with the smokers during their smoking break, but he might not have had a cigarette with them. And I think I back that.
Yeah, I think probably something like that. Like Jesus is in the smoking area, but he's not smoking. And then I said, in the same way that Jesus is like hanging out with the tax collectors, but he's not exploiting the poor. And you were like, are you equating smoking to exploiting the poor? And I went, hold on a minute.
That's what we did. It's not
whoa, time out. So that's definitely not what we're doing. I'm not suggesting that they're equitable in any way. But I think the point is though that like, this is what we learn of Jesus' behavior. This is what we learn about who Jesus chooses to spend time with and how he chooses to like signify something about the kingdom of God, and who's included and who's in it. So like, if there was a guy at our church who wanted to get baptized and still smoked, like
go for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Can I be vulnerable, guys?
Of course.
I'm going to go there. I'm going to be honest. I think if I saw someone in my like close like proximity to my life, like a friend, a family member, a spouse, I would have to repent of judgmentalism, because I would be like, this is something that has a hold on you. You can't stop, because for health reasons it's potentially not the best thing, and then financially it like costs a lot to smoke these days. And so I think I would need to sort of like just be honest about that between me and the Lord, and be like, I don't want to keep judging this person, but it gives me pause to second guess like, I don't know, their character. Is that wrong? Don't judge me, don't cancel me, world. But I think if I was being brutally honest, those are some of the things that would go through my mind. But like, I don't know, like a glass of wine when you're in Spain and you're just like with a cheeky cig, who am I? Who am I to judge?
I think some of it comes down to like how will you understand sin, or how you understand your relationship with Jesus. Like if it does, that question of like, why do you smoke was a great one as well that your friend asked you, because it's like, what does smoking give me, or what does it bring me, or how is it bringing me towards Jesus, or how am I being formed by it? Like,
does it lead to flourishing?
Does it lead to flourishing? And like it probably doesn't. Like, I don't think it nourishes you in any way to smoke physically. I don't think it brings you closer to Jesus, because you can be in a smoking area without having to smoke. And like,
so true.
But does that mean that you're beyond the grace of God? No. Does that mean you wouldn't baptize someone who was smoking? Like, no, I think you would. Like, and with all of these things, I think it's a discipleship issue, not an evangelism issue. So like, it's not this case that your mate who doesn't know Jesus comes to church and you're like, bro, you can't come in until you put that vape away. It's like, it's not, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that we should be essentially detracting from the amazing nature of what the gospel is and kind of closing the door in people's faces because of their habits.
But closing the door in people's faces can look so much less subtle than saying to someone, you can't come into church until you put that vape out. I think it's like in the way we talk to people who are smoking, if we're gonna then step away, if we're like, oh, okay, you're gonna go have a cigarette, I'll just stand here. There's a way to be inclusive and model something of how Jesus would engage and be around them, that communicates their belonging and their belovedness, and that, you know, and it's so ridiculous for me to be like, oh, I'll judge them if they're a smoker because they're addicted. There are so many other addictions, like there's caffeine, there's shopping, like.
And actually, I see loads of patients that deal with the effects of caffeine short term, like things like headaches, difficulty sleeping, difficulty concentrating, anxiety. Like, I see all sorts of that sort of stuff. And so singling out smoking as like there's one socially acceptable drug is like a bit like. But like the last thing I would say is just that even when they are Christian, like, it's not as though it's them and us, the non-Christians who smoke and the Christians who don't. It's like
so true.
Because like, you've got Christians that do smoke.
And like that doesn't mean that you know, it's like classic Matthew 7 stuff, right? Of like, judge not that you not be judged, for with the measure you use, it'll be measured to you. Like, we can say that we don't do it. We can say it's personally like not. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's true.
Doesn't lead to
I know we need to close the conversation, but I feel like there's also the hypocrisy between cigars and cigarettes. I remember like we were talking about this episode before we pressed film, and I was like, I cannot believe that people have cigars at stag do's. Like, if you have had a baby.
Sam, I can't believe people would. I can't believe people would have cigars at stag do's.
I have in life generally very little worked out.
We're all a work in progress,
and this is just one of them.
We're all a work in progress.
I'm grateful as ever for the grace of God.
Amen.
But like, why cigars and not cigarettes?
The one thing that I would say about cigars is the addiction component of it. So like, this is again, I think, nitpicking, and I think you kind of you go into territory here where it's like, oh, what can I get away with? Which is like,
that's never the heart.
That's never the heart, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But you don't inhale cigar smoke for like addiction in the same way. You just get oral cancer. You don't get lung cancer. You just get oral cancer.
There you go. So hopefully everyone's learned something today.
Wow. I think, we have to wrap it up there. But I liked these thoughts. I liked you guys would share your stories about your experiences with smoking, and we're all a journey in progress journey.
For real.
But guys out there watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, please subscribe. And like I said at the start, Sam has written a Connecting with Culture episode around vaping and smoking. So we've linked that in the description box. We would love to hear from you. Please write in the comments. Let us know. Do you smoke? Do you know friends who smoke? Do you have a pet peeve around vaping and public transport? Support group here. Until next time, see you.